Hello, welcome to Triggered Care. I am Alex. I've been not making videos. Well, okay, that's a lie. I've been making videos, but I've been too stressed out to upload any of them. But anyway, today's video is about object constancy. Bleh. Object constancy. I'm having trouble speaking this morning. And I want to talk about this partly because somebody asked me to make a video about it, and also because this is very prevalent to what I just went through. My husband and my son were out of town for a while, and I was very much struggling with this. So I thought it'd be a good idea to just talk about it and teach people about it. And maybe you can relate to going through some of these feelings and emotions. So, first we gotta define what is object constancy. And it's the capacity to understand that an absent object or person exists and will return. So a lack of it means a person reads each action of people in their lives as if there were no prior context. The person has a hard time experiencing an absent loved one as a loving presence in their mind. And also that person has difficulty seeing all of the actions taken by a person over a period of time as part of an integrated whole. And it's a common characteristic with people who have NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and complex trauma. So the person analyzes individual actions in an attempt to divine their individual meanings. So what does all of this mean, and why does it remind me so much of my own life? Is when my husband goes out of town, I have a lot of issues mentally where it is very hard for me to conceptualize that he's coming back, that he's not abandoning me, that he's not going to be away from me, and then be like, oh my God, thank God I'm not around that person anymore. I don't need her. I don't want to see her. You know, it's very hard for me to conceptualize that he still loves me even if he's not near me, even if I can't see him. And that can really be a damper on relationships, because you're not guaranteed going to be around your loved ones all the time and have that sort of safety support around you all the time throughout life. Things happen, out of town trips, whatever the case may be, they have to go visit family and you have to stay home. Whatever it is, there's going to be times in your life where your loved one is going to go away for a little bit, and then that's where this comes in and creates problems. So what happens then after they leave and you're like, oh my God, they're not never coming back, is the cycle of grief. In a situation that is perceived as if someone is abandoning the person, people with lack of object constancy go through an emotional cycle. Go from feeling nonchalance to anger to rationalizing to sadness to giving up to relief. There's a whole mountain of emotions that can be sparked from the perceivement of abandonment, which for people who were traumatized and they weren't allowed to develop that object constancy while they were a child, they're definitely going to have problems with it as an adult. And it can be really, really hard to get your head out of your emotions and to actually realistically analyze what's going on and how a lot of this is built on false beliefs that were put into you when you were a kid. When a person who lacks object constancy feels an absence or lack of any major object, it can lead to psychotic episodes, to panic states, and to impulsive efforts to avoid such panic. Which, when I read this, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. My psychotic episodes went through the frickin' roof, especially after I dropped my son off with my in-laws and I was alone in my house. The voices were going crazy. The malignant fantasies were going crazy. I felt very crazy, and even I'm in recovery, and I think I probably did a lot better than my previous times of being alone, but it was still a really, really hard few weeks for me where I felt like I was gone from the world, like I was disconnected in a way. And then in efforts to ward off those feelings of being alone, you can do pretty impulsive, crazy things that can include dangerous things where you put yourself in harm, that can go into relationship things, being overly promiscuous. If you miss the person that's gone, that can lead to efforts to connect with old people that you know that you used to connect with that might not be healthy for you, but you just want that feeling of connected with somebody back. So this is really, really difficult to go through, especially when you have psychosis or a psychoaffective disorder, a schizoaffective disorder. This can be really hard because it means that your mental illness is going to go on the fritz when a person you love or something that you use all the time that all of a sudden you can't use anymore is gone. I've noticed this when I had computer problems for a while and my computer wasn't working, and there was a despair that, well, this is never coming back again. I'm never going to be able to use a computer again. I am going to be put in a life where there are no computers. Like, it's ridiculous and it's dramatic when I look back on it. But those feelings are very much intense and real when they come up, of the fear of never having that, or the fear of losing a really close relationship that you rely on quite a bit. It can be very, very scary and a very fearful time, along with the voices that go off in your head and the fantasies that start plaguing you and making you feel just awful. And I did mention this in my parental love hole video a little bit about my fear of abandonment with my husband and him going out of town, and how greatly that affects me every time it happens. And so I just thought maybe some of you guys can relate if you've had a spouse or a close friend or somebody who had to move away, and then the awful feelings that come along with it, where it's very black and white thinking. Like, well, if they're not in my vicinity, they don't love me, they're not coming back, I have to get used to this. And that just comes along with its cycles of panic and sadness and anger and a lot of different emotions that are super intense, and they're really hard to grapple with. And on the toxic end of this, for people with NPD who have these symptoms, I think that might have been a trait that I picked up from my own mother, because she probably has this stuff too. Both abusers and victims can have these symptoms. And I think it's important to remember that it's a human brain bug. You know, it doesn't make you a good or bad person to suffer from this. It just means that when you were a tiny little person, you were not child reared effectively to the point where you understand, okay, well, mom left the room, but she's coming back and she loves me. You know, there's going to be a lack of love that kind of creates this void where you're afraid of abandonment because you never fully felt like somebody cared about you and wanted to stick around when you were young and vulnerable. So that belief system's going to continue on into your adulthood until you face it. And even after you face it, you have to recover. You have to go to therapy. You have to talk about it with your loved ones. You have to very slowly and painfully explore this part of yourself. But it does come with somewhat of a reward where every time it happens after you realize what happened, it goes slightly easier. It doesn't go way easier. It just is slightly easier than the last time that you had to deal with it. So that's my video on object constancy. I got a lot of this information from a fellow YouTube channel about narcissistic abuse. I'm going to link them down below. I'll probably just put them in my resource list that goes under every video from now on because they have some really good videos in there. I highly suggest that you check them out. Might find some good information. And if you have any stories you'd like me to share, there's my email down below where you could email them to. Otherwise, there's a Discord links down there for the Triggered Care Discord where I post new videos and we just talk about CPTSD stuff. And there's also the CPTSD Discord that has a larger member list. So there's more people there. That's one of my go-to Discords for when I'm having a crappy day and I need to vent, or if I just want to talk to people who get it. I love that Discord. I highly suggest that one too. So I hope all y'all have good ones.